Rob Mariano, aka Boston Rob, is easily one of the most iconic players in the history of Survivor. His romance with Amber was a legitimate national phenomenon. The viewers at home loved him, the producers loved him, and his fellow players loved him. Except for him, and her. Okay, so not everyone was the biggest fan of the Rob father. But he was clearly popular for a reason, as the show decided to keep bringing him back. Even after he finally won on his 4th attempt, he still came back as a mentor in season 39, and the very next season as one of the 20 competing winners. With 5 seasons, Rob has played the most of any competitor in the US version of Survivor. The point I'm trying to make with all this is that Rob has played the game a lot, and he's played alongside a lot of players throughout the years. But it begs the question, because he's played so often, how close is any one player associated with him? For those unaware, there's a popular game in the movie sphere known as the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, circling around the titular actor's Hollywood connections. This stemmed from the sheer amount of acting credits that Bacon has had over the years, and how many fellow actors he's been associated with. The idea is that you can take any notable actor or actress and find no more than 6 degrees of separation between them and Kevin Bacon. For example, Christopher Walken voiced King Louie in the 2016 Jungle Book remake. Bill Murray, who voiced Baloo in that same movie, also featured in the 1998 film Wild Things, which stars Kevin Bacon. These degrees of separation are referred to as a Bacon number. So Kevin Bacon himself would have a Bacon number of 0. Bill Murray would be 1, since he has acted in the same movie as Kevin Bacon. And Christopher Walken would be 2, since he has never acted directly alongside Kevin Bacon, but he has appeared in the same movie as someone who has. And it continues on from there. So I decided to apply that concept to Survivor, to see what players' degrees of separation are to Boston Rob, which I'll now refer to as a Boston number, to parallel the Bacon number. So Rob himself would have a Boston number of 0, just like Kevin Bacon. Anyone who has competed in the same season as Boston Rob would be 1, with Amber as an obvious example. Anyone who has not been in the same season as Boston Rob, but has competed alongside someone who has, would have a Boston number of 2. For example, Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China, played with Amanda, James, and Courtney, who were all in Heroes vs. Villains with Rob. And it goes from there. If there is no connection to be made between a given player and Rob, they'll have a null Boston number. Also, I'm only counting times the contestants competed on the same season on which Rob also competed. This means that Island of the Idols doesn't count, nor does Rob's appearances on other shows such as The Amazing Race, Deal or No Deal Island, and The Traitors. I'm keeping this strictly within the confines of Survivor. So now the question is, which players have the highest Boston number? Well, let's go through the history of the show and find out. The first 7 seasons are easy to figure out. Since Rob appeared in Survivor All-Stars, and at least one person from each of the prior seasons was also featured, this means that the maximum Boston number for those seasons is 2. Everyone who competed alongside Rob in All-Stars and his original season, Marquesas, would be 1. Everyone else from the first 7 seasons would be 2. There is one exception, Sandra, who is the only person from the first 7 seasons who wasn't on All-Stars, but would appear with Rob in a later season. Also, can I just say, it is an absolute crime that we never got to see Rob and Fairplay in the same season. Season 9, Vanuatu, is the first season to not feature anyone who has directly competed against Rob in any season. So, how many degrees of separation are there? Well, so far, only 2 people from this season have returned, Amy and Eliza, who both appeared in season 16, Micronesia. Micronesia also featured Parvati, Sari, James, and Amanda, who all played with Rob in Heroes vs. Villains. So, Amy and Eliza both have Boston numbers of 2, which means that the remainder of the Vanuatu cast is 3. Palau features Stephanie and Tom, who also appeared in Heroes vs. Villains, so they would be 1, whereas the rest of the cast is 2. Since Steph was also on the following season, Guatemala, that season's cast would also be 2, except for the winner, Danny, who would eventually battle with Rob in season 40, Winners at War. Exile Island includes Suri, who, as mentioned earlier, played with Rob in Heroes vs. Villains, in addition to Danielle. Cook Islands has Yule, Parvati, and Candace, who appeared with Rob in future seasons. This means that, surprisingly, despite Ozzy and Rob having played a combined 9 times, they've never been in the same season, so he has a Boston number of 2. Fiji is the next season to not have had any of its alumni appear alongside Rob. Yao-Man is the only one so far to return, who was in Micronesia. So you know the drill, he would be 2 and the others would be 3. China has Amanda, James, and Courtney, who were all in Heroes vs. Villains. All of the fans in Micronesia are 2, as none of them have played with Rob. The next 3 seasons, Gabon, Tocantins, and Samoa, all feature people who would later appear in Heroes vs. Villains, those being Randy, Sugar, JT, Coach, Tyson, and Russell, who would all be 1. Which means that the remaining players from all 3 seasons are 2. Moving on to the seasons after Heroes vs. Villains, we have our 3rd season to feature no one who has played directly with Rob, Nicaragua. Brenda, the only returnee as of yet, played in season 26, Caramoan, with Andrea, Philip, and Francesca, who previously competed in Redemption Island with, you guessed it, Boston Rob. So, like Amy, Eliza, and Yao-Man before her, Brenda remains the only 2 amongst 3s on her initial season's cast. Redemption Island, Rob's winning season, of course, results in everyone being granted 1s. South Pacific has Coach, whose prior excursion was Heroes vs. Villains, and Sophie would later play in Winners at War, so the rest are 2s. Similarly, One World and Philippines winners, Kim and Denise, also appeared in Winners at War. Like Micronesia before it, all of the fans in Caramoan are granted 2s, since the season features 3 Redemption Island alumni. None of the loved ones in Blood vs. Water have played with Rob, so all of the loved ones receive a 2. Cagayan and San Juan del Sur feature Tony, Sarah, Natalie, and Jeremy, who would all go on to appear in Winners at War. After quite a stretch, Season 30, Worlds Apart, has no Rob associates. The 4 returnees, Joe, Haley, Sierra, and Shireen, all returned for seasons whose winners would show up in Winners at War, so they are granted 2s and the others are granted 3s. This makes Worlds Apart our 4th season to have players with a Boston number of 3. Can we get another? Can we go higher? Let's keep going and see. The next few seasons are all the same. The winner gets a 1, and the rest of their casts get 2. So, fast forwarding through Koran, Millennials vs. Gen X, HHH, Ghost Island, and David vs. Goliath. Edge of Extinction, as of this video, has not had any players return, so that would mean that this season would be our first to have null Boston numbers, if not for the 4 returning players who competed on this season. As we found earlier, Joe, Wentworth, David, and Aubrey all have 2s, so that means EOE becomes our 5th season to have 3s. At this point, Island of the Idols has had no players return, so they formally have no connection to Rob. Yes, I know Rob was there on the island, but they weren't competing against him. So this is our first season to have null Boston numbers, which extends to every season in the new era, as none of the players have had the chance to play with anyone from the first 40 seasons, which will most likely change for season 50. So, after going through the entire series, our mark to beat is still 3. 5 seasons contain contestants with this score: Vanuatu, Fiji, Nicaragua, Worlds Apart, and Edge of Extinction. Can we ever get to 4? Possibly, but pretty unlikely. Why? Well, in order for someone to receive a 4, they'd have to compete in a season with someone with a 3. but also not compete against anyone else who has a 1 or a 2 in that season. So, while it's entirely possible we could get someone like Twyla, Earl, Marty, Mike, or Rit Devens back for 50, the prospect of someone getting a 4 would be completely ruined if even one single person with a 1 or a 2 would also be featured. So 3 will in all likelihood be where the record stays. Also, Survivor 50 should take care of most of those null scores, assuming that at least one person from each of those seasons comes back. Before we conclude, let me quickly go over some statistics. Firstly, as of Survivor 46, 77 people, or 11.04% of all contestants, have competed in the same season as Rob at least once. 411 people, 58.97%, have competed with someone who has played with Rob, but have not themselves. 81 people, 11.62%, have played with someone from the 411, but not anyone from the 77. Finally, 127 people, 18.22%, have no connection with Rob whatsoever. Next, 18 winners have never played with Rob before. You've probably heard this fact before, but Natalie White is the only pre-New Era female winner to never play with Rob. Finally, only 10 people have played with Rob on 2 different seasons. 5 men and 5 women, including his wife, of course. If you count IOI, then Sandra has been with Rob 3 times. Well, I hope you enjoyed that deep dive into Boston Rob and all of the connections he's made across his Survivor career. I know the premise of this video may have been a little absurd, but I had a lot of fun making it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.